Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of the Gutter Run podcast. My name is Andrew Paxson. I am here with my good friend Daniel Abramovitz. Dan, how you doing,
Howdy.
sir?
Doing all right. How are you doing?
Doing well, doing well. This is a pretty
Good.
quick turnaround on this episode. You and I have some busy. We have some notorious BIG times coming up soon. No, we both have busy weeks coming up. So we're
Yeah.
actually just recording this a couple of days after the prior podcast went
Yeah.
out.
I'm getting married, so that's why we have to record now.
Woo!
So yeah.
Woo!
And
That's gonna be so loud.
that's also why my audio might be kind of weird because I packed up my stuff, stand stuff. So yeah.
Well, I think you
FYI.
sound great, and
Thanks.
congratulations, Daniel. I know this is a very exciting thing. And now that we
Yeah.
have a Gmail that people can send their own messages to, everybody should wish Daniel a
Yeah.
happy marriage.
Send
And
me your
and
condolences. Yeah. They tell me it's a life sentence, but we'll
oh,
see.
that's very funny. Our predominant demographic of middle-aged men are really gonna love that joke, Daniel.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, sweet
Absolutely.
guys. Like I said, welcome back, everybody. Today we're going to be talking through a few different points of discussion. For news roundup, we've got some news about the upcoming Lanterns television show that is part of James Gunn's new DC universe. We also have I think, the second trailer for the sequel to Smile. That's coming out relatively soon. For our main topic today, we are going to be discussing Amazon Prime's Video's Batman Caped Crusader, produced by Matt Reeves and J.J. Abrams and developed by Bruce Timm. And then we'll head straight into what's on your nightstand after that, and we'll kind of give a rundown of what Dan and I have been up to and
Yeah.
the intermittent few days between we last recorded.
Right.
First order of business, I did develop a hierarchy of how we can rate things. We
Oh,
we talked about that in the prior podcast episode, and I said I
yeah.
would come up with like better names or better terms for how we're going to do this. So
Okay.
I want to run
Hit
this
me.
by you in real time,
Yeah.
so that way if it blows, you can let me know. So
Oh,
here's
I'll let you
here's
know.
here's review scale, highest to lowest. Okay, highest would be must see, so must see regardless of circumstance. This is worth your time.
All
Okay.
right.
Like it doesn't matter what it costs, what it takes for you to get there. This is something
Mm-hmm.
you need to be watching, reading, playing, etc. Okay.
All right.
Then we move into worth paying money for. So that's not an immediate yes, you have to go out right now and watch this thing or read this thing.
Yeah,
But
okay.
in terms of, the inherent cost to you for the entertainment item, yes, it's worth paying money for.
All right.
Then we move
Okay.
into best scene on someone else's dime. So this is like if you're going
I
out with
like that
somebody and they're
one.
offering to pay for you, if you share a streaming account with some friends or family members or whatnot, yeah, it's probably worth checking out, but I wouldn't, go out of my way to pay money for it, right?
Okay.
And then we move into not worth your time. This isn't
Mm-hmm.
the end all be all, this thing is just horrible, but time would be better spent doing something else. Like, for instance,
Okay.
I might have given last week's Predator Wolverine crossover comic a not worth your time because ultimately
Oh,
by the end
wow.
of it, I didn't know that I really thought that it was worth the read.
Scathing
Um,
review. Wow.
yeah, I know. I feel bad because
No.
there are things to like about it. It just, I
Yeah.
think ultimately was not for me, probably. So
Okay.
all of those, like, that's like your 10 out of 10 to like your 6 out of 10. Okay?
Okay.
That
You're
that's kind
right.
of how I'm looking at those.
But is there a bottom
There is a
line?
bottom. The bottom then, which I'm going to say is like 0 to like 4/5 out of 10, is
Okay.
just like avoid it. It's not worth seeing. Not
Shouldn't
really
have been
worth your
made.
time. Well, I feel bad because ultimately I'm of the opinion that working in the entertainment industry is a very difficult thing to do. And it takes a lot to,
You're
to jump
right.
through hoops to
Yeah,
network
yeah.
to get something up off the ground. So
Hmm.
I feel bad wanting to say something is like genuinely, like it was bad. So
Yeah,
rather than going
I
out of my way and
understand.
being like, hey, this is garbage, just like don't go out of your way to see it. Like
Okay.
avoid it. It's fine. Now, if
Yeah.
you're sitting at a bar and it's on or something like that, it's whatever. Nobody's gonna get on to you for
Tell the
it.
bartender to turn the channel, is what you
Right.
say. Yeah.
So yeah, I don't. I mean, honestly, I haven't seen many things of late that I would actively avoid because I probably avoided
Yeah,
those. There's
no.
a reason I didn't want to see them. Like,
Maybe Reddit, maybe. I
oh
don't know.
yeah, yeah. There are certain parts of the
No.
internet that should be avoided at all costs. But yeah, that's what I've got right now. So must see. worth paying money for, best seen on someone else's dime, not worth your time, and avoid at all costs.
Okay.
Those are the that's the hierarchy. That's the breakdown currently. What do you
Yeah.
think?
I think it's adequate.
Okay, that's serviceable. I can
I
accept
mean, it's
that.
not bad. No, I would rank your ranking system as a pay money for it. That's what I would rank it
Wow.
at. That's yeah.
That's very exciting. Thank you. Well, that's good to
Hmm.
know because it turns out that actually I have created this company as an LLC in your name, and you have to
Oh.
start paying me as an employee.
Oh no, no. I don't. I got the wedding to pay for.
Oh yeah, that's
You,
true. Well, don't worry about it. I'll accept. I can loan you the money that you can
I.
use to pay me,
All
and
right,
then
sounds
eventually
good.
you pay me back with
Yeah,
interest. How about that? Is that
that's
cool?
how big business works anyway.
That
So.
is how big business works. Okay. Anyway, that's enough hullabaloo. I
Oh
might
man.
trash that whole thing by the time next week rolls around. I'm not entirely sold on it,
Okay,
but I
that's a
think that would be a fun thing to continue coming back to.
nothing is set in stone.
No, nothing is set in stone except for those big Easter Island statues. Those are set in stone.
Well, those are stone, but let's keep it moving here.
Okay.
Let's move
Excellent.
on to the news.
Moving into News Roundup. For Nexus Point News, which is a publication that I was not familiar with, normally when I'm looking for my legitimate entertainment news, I'm looking at a Variety, a Hollywood Reporter, every now and then a Vulture, something like that.
Mm,
But Josh Brolin, actor that has recently played Thanos in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, he also played Cable in Deadpool 2, has been offered the lead role in the upcoming Lanterns television series. Now, the expectation here is that he would be playing Hal Jordan, which is oftentimes depicted as being, one of the most senior members of the Lantern Corps, especially for his sector. Um, and he would presumably be mentoring a younger Lantern in the form of John Stewart. When
mhm,
James Gunn did his whole kind of like slate rollout and talked about Lanterns, he described it as a detective duo akin to HBO's True Detective, which
mm.
talk about setting the bar high for yourself, man. Like that's kind of
Yeah,
a crazy
he
thing to
kind of
just
said
throw
that for
out there.
you, I think. He
He
had you in
almost
mind.
certainly, yes, he knew that I was in the audience, and he's like, these are the words that Andrew Paxson wants to hear. But yeah, so I mean, what do you think about that? Brolin's good. He's a
Yeah, I
solid
think he's a
option.
great actor. I think I
Yeah,
really like him and in the various roles he's played in and stuff like that. I think he has actually a tremendous range, even though he has kind of played like these comic book villain people and stuff like that. It is kind of cool to see him play like a hero character like that. I think there's a possibility for it to be pretty good, just it just has to, I mean the writing of course has to be good and everything, but I'm not
definitely.
it's definitely not like a Robert Downey Jr. as a Doctor Doom situation.
No, no, there's nothing to really be upset with here. I guess the only point of contention that I could maybe think of is that he is an older actor, and I get that he's
Right.
playing a veteran version of this character. But for a
Yeah.
lot of people, Hal Jordan is the definitive Green Lantern.
I
So
know.
it's kind of odd to me that if you're going to build a new vision for the DC universe that has a young Superman and presumably other young kind of like core Justice League members, that
Mhm.
your Hal Jordan would then be. I don't actually know how old Josh Brolin is. I would assume late 50s. But the man could very well
Look
be
it
like
up.
double the age of David Cornsweet Superman. And it's just odd to me that they would cast for that age range unless they plan on almost immediately phasing him out. And I
I
don't
I
want
think that's what
that.
they have in mind. He's
Okay.
56 years old.
Okay. So not necessarily. I mean, he's
Um,
moving into his late 50s.
right. I think honestly what you said, I think it's accurate. And I think the world that they're starting us in is going to already be populated with superheroes, which is what we're seeing kind of with like the Superman shoots and everything. There's like all those cameos of all the different characters and heroes in
Yeah.
it. So I think Superman's showing up on the scene with a world already full of heroes, and he's going to separate himself from others as being like the cream of the crop hero kind of guy. So I think Hal Jordan by this point probably will have already like established himself as like the Green Lantern, the big guy. And so yeah, he will be training John Stewart, whoever
Yeah.
they
Which
decide to play him.
we will kind of get more into DC animation later in the episode, but you and I are tremendous fans of the Dini verse
Hmm.
original kind of like line of animated series that came out of
The
DC animation.
DCAU.
Yes, so Batman the animated series, Superman the animated series, Justice League Unlimited, Batman Beyond, Static Shock, so on and so forth.
Hmm.
Um, John Stewart is the preeminent and main Green Lantern in that version of
Yeah.
continuity. And not only that, I think that the only time that they reference a Hal Jordan is in an episode where they are crossing like timelines are being messed with. And for a very brief instance, John Stewart like becomes or looks like a Hal Jordan.
I I think I this I think in an episode of Superman the animated series, Hal Jordan it does show up and like
You know
meet
what? I feel
Superman,
like I recall seeing
but they
that.
never used him later on though. Like you said, like I don't. I think that was before they had like the whole universe planned out
Yeah.
probably, and then they like decided to go a different direction. But yeah, John Stewart is like the main one in that universe.
And he's probably my favorite Green Lantern, I think,
Yeah,
because of that.
he's
Like that
cool.
that
Yeah.
left a sincere mark on me. And I think
Hmm.
Phil LaMarr voiced that character in the
Hmm.
animated show, and he's just so terrific. And his kind of his chemistry with Hawk Girl, Shaira.
Yeah.
Um yeah, he's just a very strong, honorable force of good
Right.
that, he means business, no playtime. They almost treated him like I mean, he has a Marine Corps background, so it would make sense that he would be a bit
Yeah.
of a hard ass. But yeah, no, like he reminded me at times of Danny Glover's character in Lethal Weapon, you know?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I feel
Yeah.
like there's
Okay.
definitely some parallels there. So yeah,
Yeah.
I would say to roll back to the Lantern series, they do seem to be building and marketing this in a way that is turning some heads. Like I think that this could
Hmm.
ultimately be very strong. And last I
Yeah.
heard, Tom King was consulting on this, which you and
Okay.
I are big Tom King fans.
Yeah. Hmm.
Um, and any of the mini series or outside of DC continuity stuff that he's able to kind of like, put his
Pause on.
yeah, it ends up being very, very solid. So
Yeah.
I'm excited for that. I think that it has a lot of promise, but I wouldn't say that I, I'm not entirely sold on this dynamic. I would almost prefer that you had two roughly young lanterns and they just
Yeah.
happen to be working concurrently. But we'll see how it goes. For the longest time, the rumored casting was going to be Tom Cruise.
Oh,
And
really?
I mean, it's hard to imagine him doing that, but then also you think about his character in
Yeah.
Top Gun, especially Top Gun Maverick, and you're like, oh, he's just doing Hal Jordan, actually.
I
Like
mean, I
that's exactly what he's
guess
doing.
maybe.
Um,
I don't know.
so yeah, I mean that's something.
Yeah,
I
it
guess
could be
to
good.
it could be good. Anything can be good. Anything can be good. I think that that's important to remember. Moving on to our second news, we got the second trailer for Smile 2. This is an upcoming horror feature. I have a synopsis right here. Um, About to embark on a new world tour, global pop sensation Sky Riley, played by Naomi Scott, begins experiencing increasingly terrifying and inexplicable events. Overwhelmed by the escalating horrors and the pressures of fame, Sky is forced to face her dark past to regain control of her life before it spirals out of control. This is coming to theaters October 18th. Did you see the first Smile movie?
No, I did
Okay.
not.
Do you want a
Uh,
rundown, I guess, or maybe some initial thoughts?
I guess it. Yeah, just give me like a rundown here.
So
Like,
the gist of it is that there is a kind of archaic evil deity, and it takes the form of one of your it effectively possesses a person, right?
okay.
And it will very publicly then take its own life. And whoever it does so in front of, they end up then being haunted by the same demon.
Oh,
So it's almost like a disease that spreads itself by enacting this horrible violence in front of another person, and then the
right.
people that
Okay.
observe that. So it's a not particularly um well done allegory for
Yeah.
like, wanton violence, PTSD,
Hmm.
survivor's guilt, things of that nature.
Right.
But I found that first movie to honestly be quite compelling and one of the more frightening theater experiences I had had in a long time.
Really.
But it does end quite dourly. Like it's one of those horror movies that has a ending where nobody really makes it out
Hmm.
alive.
I respect that.
Spoilers, I guess, for that movie that came out a while
Wow, you
back.
just ruined it for me, Drew.
Yeah, I knew that
Jeez.
you were definitely going to go and check that one out. So, but yeah, the sequel appears to be doing a comparable thing, except it's metatextualizing the horrors that come with fame and in constantly
Mm,
being in the public eye and having all of these people stare at you all the time. So there's a lot of imagery in this trailer where this main character who is this, pop sensation is performing in front of, stadiums full of people. And then normally it's like it's a single person or entity or whatnot that you see kind of like smiling in the periphery. But I feel like there
mm,
was a shot in here maybe where it was just like a crowd full of people that were like smiling back at her. And it's
yeah.
like you can't tell if they're all, of the demon's ilk or if they're all just
Mm,
happy to be there or whatnot.
mhm.
And I guess that's what it's playing on. That's kind of part of the scare. So
Right.
I don't know. I mean, it looks interesting. I think that it'll be a fine experience at worst. I think I liked the first one a fair amount because it surprised me. Like it was of a quality that was impressive for what it was,
Mm,
but it wasn't like an outstanding, like, oh, this is terrific.
mhm.
So I'm surprised. I guess I shouldn't be surprised it got a sequel. It performed well at the box office, but I was surprised with the turnaround on this. And even though the
Yeah.
premise is intriguing, I wouldn't say that I'm not chomping at the bit to get
Right.
back in the theater and see this
Yeah.
one.
Is this a
Um,
Bloomhouse picture? Is this?
it's Paramount, I think, is
Oh,
actually the
okay.
the publisher of this one, but I
It
want to say
seems like a
the
Bloomhouse.
yeah,
I
it
don't know.
definitely does. And who distributed Smile One? My computer is bugging out currently. The technology always betrays me.
Dadgummit.
Who Smile.
Bloomhouse did Five Nights at Freddy's.
They did do Five Nights at Freddy's. That's
Okay,
correct.
Bloomhouse, you changed my mind. I have a completely different opinion of you
Yeah, you know what, Bloomhouse, you're
now.
cool and we
You're
like you
not bad.
actually.
Um,
Yeah, I mean, it looks like both of them were Paramount,
okay.
so I'm not entirely certain.
I saw this trailer in the theater before Romulus when I was by myself. And
Yeah,
I honestly didn't like what I saw of the trailer. It just I don't know, it seems too it just it didn't seem interesting, I guess. I don't like it's just it was trying to be creepy with like these people smiling at the pop star lady and stuff like that. And
yeah,
I'm just like I don't know. It didn't work for me what I was seeing. It didn't entice me, and that's what movie trailers are supposed to do, and I was not enticed. So
absolutely. And I will say that even just from watching the two trailers that they do have, like the teaser in this one, it already doesn't seem to have the amount of like compelling, frightening imagery that the first film did. Because what got me into the theater for the first one is that there was in particular a scare in the trailer for the first movie where the the main character is sitting in her car and she had just like ran out of her sister's house, okay? And she gets
hmm
back to her car and the camera is looking beyond her through the car window at the door to her sister's place. And her
hmm
sister walks out and she hurries along, but it's framed in such a way that you can really only see like her torso down, so you can't see her head.
Oh,
And she
okay.
gets up to the car door and then she knocks on it. And then the girl in the car looks over at her, and then her head cranes down and you can hear like the neck like snap
Oh,
and like roll
oh.
over, and it cranes down and then she's doing like the creepy smile.
Yeah.
And honestly, I think that the sound design went a long way for that one because describing it to you now, like, yeah, it doesn't necessarily seem
I
that
think
crazy.
what I'm hearing you say sounds better than what I saw in the trailer for this
I
second
would
one.
agree with
So
that. And you know what? Maybe they're playing things close to the chest and
maybe.
they've got a lot of really solid scares to hold out for.
Hmm
But I'm not seeing the stuff that I would expect to, especially with this movie being, like 2 months away.
Yeah.
It's coming up relatively soon. So, but yeah, that's kind of all I got about that one. Did you have any other interesting news that's worth bringing up?
No, I don't. No, no, I don't think so.
Excellent. Well, then
No.
that means that we can move straight into the main topic, which I think that
Yes.
we will definitely burn some time on, and that is Batman at Caped Crusader.
Yeah.
Daniel, I figure we probably do full spoilers for this because the things that you can spoil or the things that can be spoiled are things that are like core tenets of Batman mythology that ideally most people know.
Right.
Do
Yeah,
you feel otherwise, or are you good
yeah,
with
let's
that?
just go for it. And the
Uh,
show has been out for a while now, like a month or two. So I mean, I don't know.
yeah,
Yeah, let's just go for it.
absolutely. Okay, well, what are your thoughts on Batman Caped Crusader?
At first, I was skeptical of the show ever since I saw the trailer because I didn't like the animation style. Because I think I told you this that I don't like when they try to imitate like hand drawn animation with like very obviously computer animated stuff like that.
Yeah,
It's happened recently with like the Beavis and Butthead like series that they started up again and stuff like that. And also what you'll be talking about later, the new Watchmen show. I was kind of critical of what I saw of that in that trailer. I haven't watched the episode though. I will though. But yeah, I thought they were just trying to like kind of cash in on the original Bruce Timm universe and this kind of stuff. And I also was very hesitant about it because I saw that they were going to do some different stuff with the characters, with like Harley Quinn and other things like that. But and the first episode kind of had me feeling validated for some reason because I felt like it was trying to be an episode of Batman the Animated Series.
yeah,
And you can't just like you can't pull that that work and translate it completely the same in today's day and age. I just don't think that it works. And it felt kind of cheesy and it kind of felt like it didn't know what its target audience was. Like, because there were some like, violent action sequences, but yet like the things they were saying, it just kind of felt like that they didn't know what their audience was at first. And I was really turned off by it.
yeah,
But you had such rave reviews for it, so I pressed on and I watched the second one, and I was pulled in, I was sucked in, and I realized that like actually, wait a minute, this is actually a pretty good series, and like
yeah,
they've thought this out pretty far, and like it showed me that they had care for it and that they were going to actually go somewhere with it, and there's through lines through the whole season, and it culminates, in the Harvey Dent Two-Face conundrum and we know that I think the great thing about that is that we know it's coming because like Harvey Dent always becomes Two-Face and we're introduced into a new universe, but it goes a different way than I think some of us were expecting probably, that was really cool. But
agreed.
yeah, I the animation wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be. I was really harsh on it, but it's okay,
It's really
not to hate
difficult
on
when you have something that you're kind of
it.
inherently so nostalgic for and
Yeah.
that you hold so near and dear to yourself to then see it reinterpreted, especially in a way that is like obvious. Like
Yeah.
this is a decidedly different take that also looks
Yeah.
exactly like what you
I
know.
know.
So it's strange to me. I almost would have preferred that there was more of a expansion or alteration of the art style to give you
Right.
a visual indicator that this is not exactly what you're used to seeing. Even though
Yeah.
if in essence it is very much accurate to Batman and the soul and kind of
Right.
heart of that character.
To
I
me, it kind of to me this seems like Bruce Timm is trying to be like this is what Batman the Animated Series could have been if it didn't become a part of a larger universe or something. I think he wants
yeah,
this one to stay just Batman. And
I would agree with
yeah.
that. And I've read a lot of kind of like, interviews and some behind the scenes details relating to how this came to be and what exactly got it going. And apparently Bruce Timm was very adamant because he had originally been asked to start back up Batman the Animated Series and effectively do a
Oh,
continuation comparable to like the new Batman
interesting.
adventures.
Yeah.
And he like hard no. He was like, that's not what I want to do. We did that. It exists. I'm happy with how it is. That's not what I'm
Hmm.
interested in. And then I believe that it was Matt Reeves and J.J. Abrams, who are both producers on this with their own production companies as
Yeah.
well, who had been, I don't know to what degree JJ had been involved behind the scenes. He's technically had like an ongoing multi-million-dollar deal with Warner Brothers for years now that nothing has
Hmm.
really resulted from. But at least Matt Reeves, worked on a neo-noir detective-driven version of Batman. And I
Right.
imagine that some of the good grace from that interpretation was at least, transferred over to
Mm-hmm.
Bruce Timm, and that he kind of,
Mm-hmm.
saw and understood that, oh, these people do want to do something different, or
Yeah.
at least there's another interpretation of Batman that exists concurrently that is doing comparable things. Let's
Mm-hmm.
see if I can kind of push the envelope over here.
Yeah.
And I think that it's done to great effect. I
Mm-hmm.
would not. I don't think that this season is perfect, but I did find that it
Right.
was it was quite impressive, and that I thought that it got better as it went on. In
Same.
fact, the first episode, kind of like you mentioned, was my least favorite because it
Hmm.
seemed the safest and it seemed the
It did.
silliest.
Yes.
It reminded me very much actually of like a Fleischer era Superman cartoon from like way back in the day. I think
Oh,
that was like
really?
like 40s, because the villain also they gender bend the Penguin, but not for any real reason. I think it's just because they again wanted a point of difference.
Yeah.
But there's this ongoing plot where like rival crime bosses, warehouses are being blown up. This is the third one that's been bombed this week. What's going on? And then it turns out that the Penguin has an artillery cannon
I
on her
know.
yacht. Like
I
it was very
know.
like campy, like
It
40s
was
era serials for a
I was like,
superhero.
what's going on here? Like what are we doing? Just shooting bombs like at the city? Like
Yeah,
what is going
it
on
was silly in a
here?
way that wasn't believable compared to the rest of the show, which is odd because it's an
I
animated
know.
Batman show, you
Yeah.
know? And
It
even
mhm.
stranger is that I'm pretty sure that first episode was directed by Bruce Timm. So you would
That's
think
what
that
you
he
had
would
said.
like hook, line, and sinker. You would think that he would just nail that, but no,
I think I think that's what he was trying to do. He was like trying to be like, yeah, this is Batman. This is like, Batman. You love Batman. This is what Batman does, you know? It's
yeah,
like, bro, it's kind of why are they shooting cannons,
yeah.
But
It
whatever.
was it was a bit goofy, but then in particular the second episode, which probably ended up being my second favorite of the season. There's one episode that
Hmm.
overtook that we could talk about in a second. But the
Right.
second episode is a Clayface episode.
Yes.
But it is presented with all of the twists and turns of like a gothic noir from the 50s and the
Yeah.
60s. And they spend a lot of time on like a studio backlot that is very comparable to a Warner Brothers or a
Yep.
Paramount or something of that era.
Hmm.
And the Clayface in it is is effectively the initial iteration of Clayface that we got in the comics before you ever had the large Clay Man, where he
Yeah.
was just a
The blow up
serial
guy.
killer effectively with a mushy face. But
Yeah.
but they do it in such a way, and it seems like they made an obvious parallel. Basil Karlo in it looks exactly like Boris Karloff, who played
Hmm.
Frankenstein, who also
Yeah.
lamented very much at the time that he wasn't really getting the roles that he wanted for himself because of his visage and the way that he looked. But
Hmm.
no, I love that episode. Like
Yeah.
immediately I watched that and I'm like, no, they get it. They
I know.
100% get
Yep.
it.
That's what I was saying. It sold me right there. Yep. Hmm.
And I would say that the response to this has been quite solid. Scripts are being written currently for season two, and Amazon
Cool.
seems totally, like all in on this as kind of
Hmm.
an ongoing narrative. Honestly, the craziest thing to me about the whole production of this is that this was meant to be a Max original series, and Warner Brothers sold it off. Like the
Yeah.
the reason
I
it's
was
on
wondering
Prime
about that.
Video is not
Yeah.
because of a bidding war or
I didn't
anything.
know why it was on Prime.
Yeah, that's insane to me. David Zaslav is current, I think, CEO over there at Warner Discovery, and he just seems like a man that does not really know what properties are of value to him, so he's
He's
just
a
chopping stuff left and
entertainment
right.
terrorist.
Yes, and Mr. Zaslav, if you listen to this one, and for anybody that is concerned, we mean that. We absolutely mean that. No, he's ridiculous. I mean, he's axing projects left and right for tax breaks. He seems like a man that is just not at all in tune with kind of the audience that this entertainment media
Yeah,
is created for. So that's strange to
right.
me. But enough complaining about him.
Mhm.
Um, in terms of highlight episodes, we talked about episode two. I like the Harvey Dent depiction in this, although I did find that I think his final Two Face form is a bit lackluster in terms of the design. Um,
Yeah, it
it's
wasn't
very
crazy.
toned down. It doesn't, and it's hard again to follow up the Two-Face design from Batman the Animated Series, which is
Mm-hmm.
so classic and so
Mm-hmm.
notable, which again is why I think that it probably would have benefited the show if they changed the art style to such a degree. Kind of like, I don't know if you watched The Batman, the animated show from like 2005, 2006
I
maybe.
know what you're talking. I haven't watched it, but I know what you're talking
It's
about.
it's
Yeah.
good. I mean, it's not Batman the
Yeah.
Animated Series, but it's decidedly different. It chose to
Right.
be, and it also made itself look different, so you can visually distinguish the two. And I think that
Mm-hmm.
that would have benefited this show as well.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have any kind of standout episodes or moments that you think are kind of worth bringing up?
Um, I I mean, I mean there are going to be there's when the Two-Face when Two-Face actually transforms, and the culmination of that was really good. But I
Yeah.
was just really impressed by like because they introduce characters early on in
Yes.
episodes that don't become like important until like a few episodes later, like with Harley Quinn and stuff like
Yeah.
that, where she's Bruce's psychiatrist for lack of a better term. And
I thought that was a really neat kind of twist on that
yeah,
character and a really good way to introduce her without kind of the innate ties that she often has to the Joker.
right. Hmm.
Although we do get a tease for him at the end of the show, and I imagine that he will be back, as will Harley at
Oh
some point in
yes,
the future.
absolutely. And I like I just really like Batman and slash Bruce's relationships that he develops with these people, like um with the Commissioner Gordon and Barbara and stuff like that. And also Alfred. There's like some emotional moments with Alfred too. It's kind of
Hmm.
like I wasn't expecting that. Wow, I
Yeah,
appreciate that. Wow.
absolutely.
Um, but I like the depiction of the corruption of the Gotham PD, because even though Gordon is like in charge, like it seems like he feels like his power is futile because he can't overcome like what Rupert Thorne and other people in the city have done to the police department, and like with Harvey Bullock, and I forget the other detective's name or whatever, but
Arnold Flass. He's
yeah,
in Batman Year One.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Flass. But yeah, like honestly have like important roles in this season, and they're present in like almost every episode, and they're built upon, and they have like importance, and they do bad things that lead to consequences. So I appreciate their inclusion. But yeah, if you have any that stick out to you in particular that you want to discuss, yeah, let's get into it.
Yeah, absolutely. There were quite a few episodes that I thought were particularly strong. Again, I think that following that kind of first episode, each of which was stronger than that, and kind of like they progressively got better. The episode "Moving Targets" I thought was quite fun. This is where there's a botched assassination attempt on Jim Gordon,
Mm-hmm.
and Gordon and a limited member of his team, trusted kind of confidants, decide that they are going to get out of the city, and Batman is kind of, on their tails the whole way. I thought this was interesting because it featured the villain Onomatopoeia, which I don't think we've seen. I can't think of any adaptation, animated or otherwise, that has ever featured Onomatopoeia. So that was kind of
Right.
crazy. But also, they pretty much just took the plot of Batman Arkham Origins, the 2013
Oh,
video game, where a mob boss puts a hit out on a prominent figure in Gotham, and like all the assassins come in at the same time. Like they have that scene where like the train comes into Gotham and all of the like trained, assassins step off and they
yeah,
have their
right.
briefcases and
Yeah.
stuff. And I
Mhm.
don't know, I as an idea, like that's so simple but so golden. Like you could
I
do that
know.
in a film as well, and it works out like
Yeah,
perfectly.
it's
So
great.
I like that one quite a
That
bit.
was one of my favorites.
And then I think my favorite episode of the whole season actually was the eighth episode, and that was Nocturne. And that was the one where Harvey Dent, to try and help his mayoral campaign, brings a carnival into town. And
Hmm.
one of the carnival acts is a young girl with powers that kind of require her to steal and consume the souls of other people.
Yeah, it's pretty dark.
It was very dark and it was horror themed, which I guess is
Yeah.
probably why it lends itself to me liking it so much.
Hmm.
But something that I enjoyed about it is that Leslie Tompkins, who is a Batman character that looked over and had kind of a hand in bringing up Bruce Wayne after the death of his parents. She was in Batman the Animated Series, but she also
Hmm.
runs an orphanage in this.
Hmm.
And it looks like all of the Robins are in this orphanage at about the same time, which
Oh.
that kind of tells me that maybe they're not doing a Robin as we know it, because
Hmm.
Dick Grayson was there, Jason Todd was there, Stephanie Brown was there, Carrie Kelly was there. I don't remember if there was a Tim Drake. I would prefer that there be a Tim Drake, but I
Yeah.
don't know. It could just be that I'm misremembering. But yeah, like all of those kids are very obvious Robin homages, and they even like when they say each other's name. Like I think Jason was like you can call me Jace, and he referred to Dick Grayson as Dickie.
Hmm.
And Carrie Kelly just looks like Carrie Kelly out of The Dark Knight Returns, you know? But the thing about that episode that I enjoyed so much, um, there's a moment in it toward the end of the episode that nearly brought tears to my eyes, which happens really anytime that Batman interacts with children,
Yeah.
because probably because of something about us kind of like being so close to that character as children, trying to follow an
Hmm.
example that was set. A lot of people, especially nowadays, there's like the pseudo intellectual type that wants to constantly deconstruct the superhero and tell
I
you how, oh,
know.
Batman's actually a bad man because rather than
Uh,
getting therapy and working through his issues, he decides that he's going to beat up criminals at night.
oh
um
my God.
well, one, it's fiction. I'm sorry, it's not real. Like
Yeah.
these things aren't that important. But then on the other end, and maybe why I think that it does, resonate with people, um, the power of these fictional characters is in the myth of them. Effectively, I think that this literature exists as modern mythology. I think that that's the reason
Hmm.
that it resonates with people, and that's why folks care for it in the way that they do. Batman represents an ideal to strive towards. So do Superman, Spider-Man, Captain America, so on and so forth. They
Hmm.
present common aspects of life and the difficulties that an individual would face, and they work through them and they persevere and they try hard, and they're able to do this because it's right ultimately. And I think that that's admirable. And there was a point in this Nocturne episode where the young girl that drains the souls of people, Nocturne I think is actually her villainous name,
Hmm.
but she cannot be in the light, and she has been stalking Carrie Kelly through the woods, and Batman ends up catching up with her, and they kind of have a scuffle, but then the sun starts coming up, and it touches her, and she almost begins like burning like a vampire, because I think that she's kind of an entity of like pure darkness. But there is
Hmm.
this moment where Carrie Kelly is like, hey, this creep tried to eat my soul. Leave her, get out of here. Like, what are you doing? And Batman just looks at her and is like, I can't.
Yeah.
And then he picks up Nocturne and he wraps her in his cape so that he
Yeah.
can take her back, to the carnival to safety without the sunlight touching her. And you get
Hmm.
this like very idyllic kind of beautiful, the sun's coming up, it's coming through the trees. It's this, lovely landscape, and Batman's just like standing there holding a kid. And it reminded
Right.
me a lot of the Justice League Unlimited episode where Batman has to sit with the
Epilogue.
yes,
That's the
yep.
episode
Yep,
name.
that's the episode. So Batman in that has to sit with the youngest member of the Royal Flush Gang who has
Hmm.
reality warping powers but is also dying
Hmm.
because of it. And whereas all of the other heroes don't know how to handle this, and they're not sure who they're going to send in, what are we going to do? This is such a big deal. Batman just walks in and he just sits and talks with her, and she
Yeah.
passes naturally like she was going to, but he
I know.
effectively prevents cataclysm by doing so. But that's
Hmm.
because Batman's the
Great
best.
episode.
Okay,
Yes.
it's an
Batman's
incredible
freaking
episode.
awesome.
It brings tears to my
Anybody who
eyes.
says that Batman isn't awesome, you need to not say that. How
I
about
was gonna say you got to reevaluate
that?
yourself. Okay, you got to check
Yeah.
yourself before you wreck yourself, because
Hmm.
obvious. Also, beyond that, you're just missing out.
Yeah.
Some of the greatest stories I've read in my lifetime, and I and
I
I
know.
genuinely mean this without hyperbole, have been in comic books.
I
Like
know.
like Tom King's Mr.
Absolutely.
Miracle, limited series, 12 issues.
Fantastic.
Incredible. Like
Hmm.
one of the greater pieces of fiction literature that I have read in years. So,
Hmm.
yeah, I'm not saying that everybody needs to like the things that I like, but it is strange the grievances that people have with comic
Yeah.
characters and kind of their place in the world. Um, but
Hmm.
ultimately, no, the show is very strong. I think it only gets stronger. I think it does justice to Batman and the ideals that are kind of set forth for that character. And I think that it has unique takes on a lot of characters that are going to
Yeah.
wrap back around and prove to continue to be interesting. You
Hmm.
mentioned Harley Quinn being Bruce's psychiatrist. I thought that that was very exciting. Harvey Dent in this, unfortunately, does end up passing away. That is kind of a break from continuity. They do kill him in that final episode. But it
Right.
was interesting that his Two-Face persona, his scarred persona, is the one that wants to continue to be heroic. It's the one that still
Mm.
stands for the ideals of Harvey Dent because normally that's switched. The
Hmm.
bad face, is the one that's been horribly disfigured is the one that wants to act out and commit crime and so
Right.
on and so forth. But no, in this case, Harvey had been so beaten down by life that actually this horrible scarred visage that he has is the reminder that you know what you could do better, and the circumstances that brought you here were unfortunately partially your own
Yeah.
doing, but it's our job to fix that. And
Yeah.
I think that that's noble, and he kind of
I
got
loved
a
what they
heroic
did with
send
him.
off.
Yeah, I loved what they did with him because and yeah, most iterations like after he becomes Two-Face, like the evil part of him like takes over completely, but he was more able to control it, it seemed like in this one, and it would flare up every now and then with his anger, but like at the end of the day, he did end up sacrificing his own life for Barbara, which was
Absolutely.
it was amazing. It was yeah, because like as I was saying that like we all know what happens with Harvey Dent in a Batman story. We all know where he's going, but they did something different with it, and I was really happy with it. So, yeah,
Agreed. A character that is very similar that I don't think changed really much at all, except for her outfit, was Catwoman.
right.
But I don't know how much there is to do with Catwoman
I
outside of kind
know.
of the core premise of the character. And she still works. Like Christina Ricci voices Catwoman in this, and I thought that she
Mm,
was terrific, and I really
yeah,
enjoyed her single episode. In fact, I was
right.
kind of hoping to see her more in
Yeah,
later episodes because I
that
thought
was
that she was
one
such a
thing.
strong presence.
That was one thing I thought would come back around, but no, it seemed like she was kind of limited to that episode. So I think we'll
Yeah.
see more of her in the second season. So
What
yeah.
do you think? I guess before we give our rating and ultimately move on to the final segment of the show, what did you think of Hamish Linklater as Batman slash Bruce Wayne?
It, it worked. I think I like him more as Batman than I do as Bruce Wayne, I
Agreed.
think.
Yeah.
But I think, I mean, obviously, the GOAT is no longer with us.
Rest in peace,
So
Kevin Conroy. Big shoes to fill.
I
Big
know, yeah, big,
bat-sized shoes to
I
fill.
know. But I think I mean, I think his performance is good, but I think it helped even more that like the dialogue was so strongly written for Batman. So I think yeah, it was really good. I was kind of surprised that it was as good as it was because like as you said, it's hard to top Kevin Conroy in his depiction. But yeah,
Yeah, I mean,
no,
Kevin
no complaints
Conroy
really.
is one of the best to ever do it. He really cannot be outdone. And there's a reason that so many people kind of think of him as like the de facto, like this is
Right.
Batman. He's the voice
Hmm.
I hear in my head when I read the comic panels.
Right. Yeah.
Um,
Hmm.
so yeah, those are, tremendous shoes to fill.
Hmm.
And it's difficult to step into that, but I think that he did about as good of a job as anybody could have done.
Right.
Another choice of mine that I quite like, though I don't know if they would have had him be a series regular, but Roger Craig Smith voiced him in Batman Arkham Origins to bring that video game up again. And I think that he's a very strong choice other than Kevin Conroy. Other strong choices, Peter Weller, aka RoboCop, voiced Old Man Batman in the animated adaptations of The Dark Knight Returns, Part 1 and Part 2.
Oh
Um,
yeah.
and then I want to say Bruce Greenwood maybe voiced Batman in Justice League, a Crisis on Two Earths, I think is what that animated movie was called. But he's really good in that too. So look, Kevin Conroy, one of the best to ever do it. I can't sing his praises enough, but there are other options, and I think that I'm very happy to state that Hamish Linklater is a solid choice to kind of add to that
Yeah.
pantheon, and I
Hmm.
hope that he is used in other stuff in the future. I
Right.
guess
Hmm.
the question now becomes, well, also he does seem to kind of just be doing Kevin Conroy. And I don't think that that's bad. You could just look at that as, oh, well, Kevin Conroy just found that perfect dichotomy for playing
Hmm.
Batman. But Hamish Linklater does really sound like he's doing Kevin Conroy at
I think,
times.
but like his tone is a little different. Like it's not. I feel like his comes from like lower in the throat, and I feel like Kevin's kind of comes up maybe a little bit higher in the throat. I don't know, but like I
Yeah,
think more so than that, I think it's like the delivery, like how he says certain things, like the emotion of it. I think that is honestly the most important part of it, and I think he gets
agreed.
that through really well. So
Yeah, the cadence does separate the two. I
yeah.
find that Conroy's Batman is very. I mean, he went to Juilliard. I'm
Hmm.
fairly certain. So his Batman is a very theatric persona,
Yeah.
even if it's just in the like grandstanding and kind of like projection of the voice. Whereas
Right.
Linklaters, I thought was a lot more reserved, honestly.
Yeah.
But still both very good, and I liked them a
hmm
lot.
Yeah.
What would you? I should pull my scale back up because I've already forgotten. I don't
Yeah,
think that this
gummit.
is the best this could be. And they did introduce the Joker as kind of like an end credit stinger in the final episode. So I
Yeah.
do think that like I wouldn't be surprised if episode or season 2 of this is comparable to like a Batman Begins to Dark Knight jump for a lot of
That
people.
could be. Yeah.
Because they've
Could
now
be.
seeded the world, they've established the characters, you know who they are. They can now kind of like
hmm
play with the sandbox. And they
Right.
seem to have really deliberately like most of the villains in this are villains you haven't seen before or are not familiar
hmm
with, and I think that that
Right.
was purposeful. So I feel like they were really saving the big guns for this next season.
Right.
um
Exactly.
with all of that being said, I would say that this is worth paying money for. I don't know that it is a must see regardless of circumstance, because I don't know that like again, it took me a bit to get into, and even though I very much enjoyed this, I don't know that like if they put out a Blu-ray collection or whatnot for just the first season, I may not go out of my way to buy it. And I
Right.
am a guy that likes my physical media, so you might think, oh, okay, well that's kind of like a mark of the quality, but it's still very good. Like I pay for Amazon Prime.
hmm
If I hadn't already been paying for Amazon Prime, I would have bought it for the month to watch this. Like it's
Yeah.
100% worth that and very
Yeah,
much more.
absolutely. 100%. Yeah. I agree with that. Yeah. That my take is the same.
Yeah, solid. No, it's got room for improvement, but it has very little wrong
Yeah.
with it. Like there's not so much things that are wrong, just we know that there's potential here that will be realized in the future, I
I mean,
think is kind of a better way to
it's
look at
better
it.
than any like Batman publications that are coming out right now, I think.
That
So
is probably true. Yeah.
so yeah, if
So
you want Batman, this is it, in my
yeah,
opinion.
100%. And yeah, if you like pulp noir, if you like kind of, 50s and 60s era crime films, if you liked the Batman 2022, there's a lot of shared DNA. So
hmm
it's worth checking out. I would highly recommend it. And I think that you're going to enjoy it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Well, moving on now to what's on your nightstand. Daniel, do you want to kick this one off? Because I think that you had a chance now to play the Black Ops 6 beta.
Yes, I played the Blob 6 beta, and I have to say, it's Call of Duty. It's Call of Duty like you've always seen it before. It
Yep.
is shooting people, it's running around, it's getting kill streaks, etc. And I'm not very good at it, but I still had fun, you know. There's limited maps and limited weapons, but yet I found myself like playing it like I'd be like, okay, one more game, that's it. And then I'd say, you know what, one more game. And then
Yep.
it kept kind of going, you know. And I think it feels kind of good. The Omni movement, it didn't have as big of an impact on gameplay as I thought it would.
Yeah.
There's a few times where like I've like jumped to the side or something or slid to the side and like I shoot a guy or something, but it's honestly not that noticeable unless like you're doing something super crazy or I guess where it's been really noticeable for me is like if I crawl backwards because now like you can, you
Yeah.
know, you don't have to like turn around. So if you're going prone, it's noticeable then. But yeah, it's not like super crazy and but it's just it's Call of Duty. It's not fantastic, but like it feels good and yeah, I enjoyed it and I will probably play it a lot when it actually comes out in the full release. So
I
yeah,
think
those are my thoughts.
this is ultimately quite good because you and I are both, I would say, laymen when it comes to first person shooters. Like we know
Yeah,
them, we play them. There was a time when we
right.
used to play a lot more of them, but again, we've never
hmm
been experts,
No.
so to speak. I was very good at Call of Duty Zombies at one point in time, but there's not a professional zombie scene or anything like that. So
Yeah.
I have a few questions that I wanted to pick your brain on that I thought
Okay.
would be interesting. So Omni movement is in the game. For both you and I, it made very little impact on my played experience. Like
Right.
I wouldn't say that I was going out of my way to leverage or use that, but I have already seen clips online on Twitter or whatnot of
hmm
people moving in such a capacity that it like gives me motion sickness. So my question to you is, do you think that omni movement is going to present a skill gap issue in the community that will
Skill
very
issue.
rapidly lead to
Skill
you and I
issue.
getting wrecked every time we pick up the game?
Oh, it's 100% gonna be exploited somehow. Like there's no question about it. That's COD players. They will find whatever mechanic of the game that they can exploit, and they will exploit it to their fullest and make sure that everybody else has a bad time.
Yep.
However, it seemed like I think you had mentioned this, the skill-based matchmaking. Like it seemed like that you weren't like you were kind of fluctuating, but you still maintained like a relatively high KD around,
Yes,
1
that
KD
is
or something like
correct.
that. And I kind of felt that way as well. Like it didn't like I would have a good game, then I have a bad game, but it wasn't like a super bad game where it was like I'm never playing this ever again, you know?
Yes.
Like it there weren't like major sweats when I was playing it. So I think maybe they have tweaked the skill-based matchmaking so that like you don't come in contact with those like dreadful players as much, or something like that. But I think yeah, it probably will be exploited, but they have the ability to tinker with it, and that's what the beta's for and everything. So hopefully they get it right.
I have a theory about skill-based matchmaking that I wanted to share with you.
Okay,
So that has been the bane of my existence playing
I
Call of
know.
Duty games and comparable first-person shooters for several years, because ultimately what it has stopped me from doing is playing games with my friends. Because
I
I
know.
find that the steepness of the difficulty curve ramps up so dramatically when you start having, 3 or 4 man groups. But
Yeah,
those are the friends that I play with,
I
but then all of a
know.
sudden I'm playing against a team that is coordinated and, super adept at playing the game and they know all the
Yeah.
mechanics and the maps and stuff. So then it's just bad for me. Well, with I played with teams of 3. I played with teams of 5 during the beta. And I would say
Hmm.
that realistically, when I was playing with, yeah, like a full stack of my friends, was there a notable difficulty jump? Yes, but was it so crazy that I was still, going positive for my kill death ratio and
Hmm.
having a good experience. So for a second, I thought the same thing that you had thought, where I'm like, maybe they tweaked this and maybe it's not kind of, as harsh as it has been in the past. But I've I think it's like that parable about like, oh, we're looking at the plane schematics where all of these, like all of these people got shot down overseas. We're looking at the places where all the holes came through the most, when really they should have been patching the other parts because they're looking at the planes
Yeah.
that made it back home, not the ones
Right.
that fell into the ocean.
Okay.
So I think what's happening, Daniel, is that because this was made available for Game Pass subscribers, I think there is a significantly larger pool than there would normally be because traditionally your beta
Oh.
people are just the folks that have pre-ordered it.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
I think that we have a larger pool of people to interact with, which means that presumably there are going to be a larger set of kind of like sub skill level players.
Okay.
And also all of the maps in this game are entirely new.
Yes.
Like they have 16 new maps that they're putting out at launch. They're definitely going to
Right.
bring some back in the future, but that
Yeah.
also means that people haven't been playing these same maps since,
Hmm.
2009, 2012,
Right.
2014 or whatever. So people
Yes.
didn't know them like the back of their hand.
Hmm.
So I even felt like I noticed between day 1 of playing the beta last, Friday or whatever, and my third day of playing the beta, that it wasn't just that I had maybe gotten more accustomed to them. It was that the lobbies that I ran felt a lot harsher. So
Oh,
I think
okay.
that what's happening is that we had a larger pool of less than stellar players that benefited us. And then the folks that hadn't yet learned the maps had done so within, 72 hours even. So I thought initially, oh, the skill-based matchmaking has maybe worked out for us, but no, I actually think that this is just the one instance where we had kind of a level playing field and it's already gone. I think we've lost it
Dang it,
already.
we still suck.
We're
Dang it.
still bad.
Oh,
So, and I don't
gosh.
know this to be true, but what I do know is that skill-based matchmaking is never going away. Activision actually published like
Yes.
a several page article recently that was effectively a research periodical talking about how they had turned off skill-based matchmaking in Modern Warfare 3 for X number of months. And they looked at player counts and player retention, and they found that the lobbies that people got into where they got dominated were far worse, and that they couldn't dangle the concept of a win in front of people anymore, so their player retention dropped. And ultimately,
Hmm.
they make money off of these things because they're live
Yeah.
services now, so they can't allow that. So skill-based matchmaking is unfortunately here to
Ay
stay.
caramba.
I didn't mean to hijack your Call of Duty discussion.
No,
I've been having these
you just
thoughts.
freaking made me sad
Sorry,
talking about it.
brother. That's what I'm here
It
to do, though.
sucks.
Right? Just before your
I
wedding, I'm here to make you
I
sad.
know. Already sad enough. No, I'm just kidding.
Anything else you want to say about that? Any other thoughts?
No, no, I have
Okay.
nothing else to say about blocks.
Okay, well
Nothing.
then I'm going to swing into Watchmen Chapter 1, which is the new
Mhm.
animated I guess it's feature length, although they split it into 2 parts. I want to say that the next part comes out in a month or two. But it is a 3D animated adaptation of the seminal graphic novel from Alan Moore and Dave Gibbons, Watchmen. And you may be like, haven't there been several adaptations of Watchmen already? There was a motion comic, there was three different cuts of the Zack Snyder movie. Yeah, there's been a lot. There's been a lot. There was an HBO sequel show. There was Doomsday Clock, which was a comic sequel that also took place in the DC universe.
Hmm.
As much as Alan Moore wants to distance himself from this, effectively his idea is being profiteered, and it's going to be profiteered until the end of days because he wrote one of the greatest books ever, and it's
Yeah,
a
it's
comic book,
fantastic.
but it's incredible. I mean,
It's
it
amazing.
genuinely has not been outdone, and there's a reason people hold it in such high regard. So DC Animation decided, you know what, we're cooking some stuff up. We have this new style of animation. We think that we could use it for Watchmen, and we could kind of accurately translate the art to screen. And you know what? At first, I thought that it looked odd. It reminded me of that Marvel What If show where they have
Yeah.
kind of like hand-drawn designs that they end up creating 3D models out of that they then
Hmm.
use to look like 2D animation. But I knew that that tech was already progressing because that's what they did for X-Men 97, which
Mm.
unfortunately we were not doing the podcast at that point in time. But X-Men 97, same situation. They have 3D models that were created and cell shaded to look like 2D art. And I think
Mm.
that show looks stellar. Like it's incredible.
Mm.
So when this Watchmen rolled around, I thought that the trailer looked okay, but I was like, do we really need this? And I watched the first part of it, and look, it's pretty good. It's it's not incredible, and they've already made very small omissions to the story that mainly involve harsh kind of graphic adult material. And
Oh,
look, I'm not
okay.
saying that those things are entirely necessary to the story, but they're not like only mentioned in passing. They're kind of like omitted entirely. I
Hmm.
think that a good example of this is that Dr. Manhattan, famously naked character, you only see that once, and you see it during the moment when he rematerializes himself after being atomized.
Yeah.
But in the comic and in the movie and in other adaptations, you would have seen Dr. Manhattan dong like
Yeah.
three times earlier in the show. Which sorry for all
I'm,
the audio listeners that probably think that I'm an insane man. But yeah,
no,
that's the
no, we
the
need to see that. Yeah, that's
well, I'm not saying that the importance is that. I'm more just saying that if you're going to do because J. Michael Straczynski, who is a comic writer, worked on adapting this so that they could kind of get it made. And he talked about how he was like, I kept everything that was in the book. I really made no, changes whatsoever. This is supposed to be like the definitive version of this. Well, if that's the case, then why are you cutting out
yeah.
elements at all?
Something happened here, man.
There
Hmm.
is a point where in the book, the comedian guns down a Vietnamese woman, and that does happen in this. But whereas in the book, that whole scene is shown, and then in the Zack Snyder adaptation, it's shown even in more graphic detail to kind of like
Hmm.
really get across the sincerity of this and how important it is, and how much it kind of changes Dr. Manhattan and his opinion of the human condition. They they don't gloss over it in this adaptation, but it does happen like partially off screen, and then you just see the
Oh,
body on the ground. So I feel like that
okay.
takes away some of the seriousness of it. So
Yeah.
I have minor gripes like that, but otherwise, I think that the voice cast is stellar. I think that they're very very good in the roles. I think in particular Katie Sackhoff as whom I think a lot of people would know from Battlestar Galactica or The Mandalorian. But
Hmm.
she is Silk Spectre 2, aka
Mm.
Laurie Juspesic. And she's great. She's maybe the standout for me. Like I really, really like her
Really?
in this, and I think that they're doing a better job with her characterization than they've done in any of the other adaptations.
That's good.
So that's good. The Doctor Manhattan stuff is very strong. They have a way of showing Doctor Manhattan's kind of like eternal understanding of time better than they've done in any other thing. I
Really?
think it's the closest to how it worked in the comic, and it's very impressive. So I like that a lot.
That's cool.
Rorschach is solid, Night Owl is solid, and we're getting an actual adaptation of Ozymandias, which unfortunately he becomes kind of a caricature in most instances because they need him to
Hmm.
be a more kind of like definitive, stereotypical villain. But no,
Right.
this is not that. This is comic book Ozymandias. So
Cool.
I would say that the pros outweigh the cons. Unfortunately, I only have one half of this to kind of, judge at this point in time, so I need
Hmm.
part two. But I think that this has the potential to be the new definitive Watchmen adaptation. Like,
Really?
what I was considering, why even with the minor gripes that I've mentioned up to this point, there's enough there already that I can tell that they care and that this is important to them, and that they want
Right.
to they want to at least get the essence of it right, if that
Yeah.
makes any sense. Because as much as I love Zack Snyder's adaptation, and as close as it is sometimes literally to recreating panels and using the same dialogue,
Hmm.
I would argue that that movie ultimately misses the essence, or like the true point of Watchmen. So
Hmm.
that's one of those things where it's like a picture perfect recreation that doesn't have the soul of the
Yeah.
graphic novel. Which you and we both like that movie a lot though. Like,
Yes,
it's very good.
absolutely.
I enjoy it. One of these days, I'm sure that we're going to do an episode on it. But yeah,
Yeah,
I think that this, on the other hand, has the soul, it has that essence, like it feels very
that's
much like
good.
Watchmen. And honestly, the 3D models are drawn, textured, and cell shaded in such a way that they pretty much just look like Dave Gibbons art. Like, they even have
I
like
love
the
Dave
hatch
Gibbons.
lines for how
Yeah.
he would have like shaded those characters.
Hmm.
So I like that a lot as an artist. Like, I think that
Yeah.
it works really well, and it looks great in movement. I was very
Hmm.
impressed by that. So I think that the best thing, I'm gonna withhold my rating until
Yeah,
I
I
end up
think you
seeing part
should.
two. But I
Yeah.
think that the best thing I can say about it at this point in time is that my girlfriend, my partner, watched the Watchmen HBO show with me. And that was awesome. I was very appreciative of that. But she had never seen Zack Snyder's Watchmen. She had never seen the motion comics. She had never read the book. She knew nothing about the Watchmen canon up to that point. So she
Hmm.
walked away from the HBO show quite confused. She wasn't exactly sure what she had seen, but she stuck through it. And ever since then, I've been trying to be like, well, what version of Watchmen do I need to show her to make sure that
Yeah.
she really gets it? Because the HBO show does the giant squid attack on Manhattan, whereas
Hmm.
Zack Snyder's adaptation uses Dr. Manhattan as kind of like the visage of terror that
Right.
Ozymandias ultimately puts in the minds of people. So I've kind of been at battle with myself for a very long time, thinking, well, do I just show that to her but explain that it's different? What do I need to do? I think once both parts of this are out, this would be it. Like, I think that this would be the
Okay.
version of it that you show to a person to be like, this is what Watchmen is.
Awesome. Okay, yeah. That's cool.
So yeah, that's that, and Dr. Manhattan Dong included. That's what I wanted to talk about during this what's on your
Yeah.
nightstand.
I'll
Um,
watch it. I mean, I love that story and I love revisiting it. So yeah, I'll be watching it and I'll probably give
I
my
I
thoughts.
think you can rent it for like 5.99 now, but honestly,
Mhm.
when this one whenever they have both of them out and they come as like a two pack or whatnot, if I could get a
Yeah,
steelbook or something like that, I'll just buy this and I
this
could just
man
loan it
loves
to
the
you.
steel books.
I Brother, one of these days I'll have a solo podcast that's like my collection, and it's just me
Yeah.
going through like every
He's
steelbook that
got
I
like a
own.
Criterion closet just but of steel books of
That's
like
that's 100% what
campy
it
horror
is.
films,
Yeah.
etc.
I got that. I got my
Yeah.
action figures. I got my vinyls. I got my comic. Physical media is very important to me, folks.
He's got a museum.
I saw Terminator and I got very concerned about the machines taking over. Okay. I don't trust them.
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah,
Yeah. Well, sweet,
absolutely.
man. You got anything else you want to tag on here, and anything to talk about?
You know, um, don't don't really think so. The next time you hear from me, guys, I'll be a married man. And that's
Woo! Clap. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, woo. Yeah, but I hope I'm still the same.
He plays
We'll
it straight,
see.
but you know that he's very excited about it, actually.
I know, I'm super excited. She's the love of my life and it's gonna be amazing. So yeah,
All
looking
right,
forward to
everybody.
it.
Remember, you can write us at gutterrunpodcasting
That's
at
right.
gmail.com. And I want you to be sending in nice things about Daniel and his newfound next tier of his relationship. Okay.
That's
This is a
right.
big deal. My buddy's getting married.
Send us stuff,
Okay.
guys. Yes, we
Yes.
appreciate
Please
it.
send us stuff. Thank you all very much for
Thanks
listening.
for
This has
listening.
been the third episode of the Gutter Run podcast. My name is
Hmm.
Andrew Paxson. This has been Daniel Abramovitz, and thank you so much for your time.
Yeah.
Bye.
Bye.